cordyceps, aspergillus, any one of them could become capable of burrowing into our brains and taking control, not of millions of us, but billions of us. Billions of puppets with poisoned minds, permanently fixed on one unifying goal: to spread the infection to every last human alive by any means necessary.
One of the most discussed scenes, as I recall, from Season 1 of The Last of Us was this news panel teaser from the first episode. And not only was this an efficient way of introducing the concept of cordyceps fungus infecting humans and causing a global pandemic, but also effectively reframed the entire Last of Us story, continuing in an interconnected series of backstory cold opens, showcasing the fall of civilization, juxtaposed with Joel and Ellie living in this grounded, now very fleshed out universe. It was a clever way to make this familiar story feel fresh for TV. And then they just sort of gave up on it. By episode 4, The Last of Us not only dropped the prequel cold opens, but just stopped doing cold opens almost completely. The remainder of the season unceremoniously just sort of ended up being a pretty literal translation of the video game for the most part.
Here, this make you all nostalgic?
That is actually before my time.
And that's fine. It worked well enough, but with how familiar the rest of the season is, I have to question why those first 3 episodes even bothered playing things so differently. I didn't get the feeling showrunners Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann knew exactly what they were trying to do with The Last of Us on TV. Sometimes it's a very realistic fall of civilization story, sometimes it's a heartwarming play-like bottle episode about Nick Offerman learning to love again. But none of it ever quite gelled into one cohesive entity.
Bom. Walay lahat ng upuman.
You live in a psycho bunker where 9/11 was an inside job and the government are all Nazis.
The government are all Nazis!
It sort of struck me as a half-measure way of making this decade-old story feel fresh, while also being too nervous to stray away from the source material. So I ended up getting something firmly in the middle. The impression I get here is that changes to the story, or outright new additions to it, come from a place of insincerity. Half-baked ideas that bring us to the same familiar conclusions that only seem to exist so that the story will look just different enough to be fresh. And then we got to Season 2, and I knew we were in for something sloppier, just from the way it opened. I don't think The Last of Us Part 2 video game is exactly the tightest story ever written, but the opening of the game is pretty much perfect. The events of the first game are efficiently recapped in this tense moment between Joel and his brother Tommy, while also introducing the inciting incident that will carry the rest of the story.
Because of her, they were actually gonna make a cure.
The relationship between these two brothers wasn't particularly fleshed out in the first Last of Us game, so I thought it was beneficial to at least give the Miller brothers this moment together. Joel has at least one person on Earth he can confess this terrible event to.
About what we were talking about earlier. I can't say I'd have done different.
From there, we pick up on Joel and Ellie's relationship in the aftermath of their eventful visit to the Firefly Hospital. Ellie obviously knows there's something wrong with Joel's story, she probably doesn't know what, but it's obvious she knows Joel lied to her. Joel knows he has to do something to win back Ellie's trust without telling her what happened in Salt Lake City. This is where we see Joel manipulate the situation, not in an overtly malicious way, but through this coded message to Ellie. A confession of the love he fears losing from her, through the lyrics of Pearl Jam's Future Days.
If I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself.
From this scene alone, we see how Joel uses his charm and good fatherly instinct to hide the truth from Ellie, while simultaneously confessing his fatherly love for her. Entering the television adaptation, instead of any of that, we get a virtually pointless reprise of the closing scene of Season 1. I understand the importance of framing this story on Joel's lie, but we saw this already. Is this really where we have to start the story? From there, we're unceremoniously thrown back into Salt Lake City in a scene featuring a bunch of kids standing in a field. Immediately, the dialogue here is really clunky. There's an obnoxious amount of information spoken in the scene that audiences don't really need, and information shared that I don't buy went unspoken until this moment.
Ed has a brother who runs an outfit in Seattle, a guy named Isaac. Supposedly he'd take us all in.
Like, Owen just waits until this moment to share that they can travel to Seattle to join up with a guy called Isaac. Is this really the first time any of these characters have spoken about any of this?
With a 3-day jump on us, we should have gone right after
He
him.
drove away, Abby, in our only working vehicle.
And we were trying to save the wounded.
Drove away in our only working vehicle? Why would the Fireflies only commit to getting one car running in their entire garage full of cars? I mean, they're a fairly well-equipped outfit. How are they getting anything done with one car? Did they really all pile up in one every time they went on a supply run? Finally, I just don't see a compelling reason to include this scene at all when the character dynamics of this group are established just fine in the following episode. In my opinion, this final shot of Abby looking out over Jackson, juxtaposed with this imagery of a fuse about to explode, should have been the first time we met Abby. There's an idea I learned in creative writing that you should remove your first 50 pages of a written story, as the story likely doesn't begin in earnest until the writing that follows. This scene obviously isn't 50 pages of writing, but what I'm getting at is don't start your story on your most dull, completely exposition-driven scene. So, in the span of one teaser, we've explored two distinct story beats that didn't really belong together. I think either open the episode on one scene or the other. More creatively though, what if you took both of these moments, Joel and Ellie's relationship, and the fallout of the hospital massacre, and made one teaser out of it?
Lose myself. Everything that I've found here, I've not found by myself. Try and sometimes you'll succeed to make this man of me. All my stolen missing parts I've no need for anymore. I believe, and I believe 'cause I can see our future days, days of you and me.
When we kill him, we kill him slowly.
On the subject of Pearl Jam's future days, the entire story of The Last of Us Part 2 game is framed through the lyrics of the song. More specifically, the entire story is literally framed on the bridge of Joel's guitar. The complete narrative of the game lives inside of this moment. Now, I understand the HBO show does not have to be beholden to the story of the game, and after all, I've already criticized the show for its hesitation to move away from the source material. But this future days moment is so integral to the structure of Part 2's story, I don't understand the thought process behind not opening Season 2 with it. Even the HBO series showrunner Craig Mazin described certain moments in The Last of Us canon as load-bearing walls.
What we try and do is preserve the aspects of canon that I would call load-bearing walls. They must be there. You must have Ellie in that room say to Joel, I would only be more scared.
Does this moment not constitute as a load-bearing wall to the story, especially since it ends up appearing in the 6th episode anyway? The Future Days scene eventually happens, and while it's nice, it's not particularly important anymore. It's still a nice connective tissue to Joel and Ellie after Joel's death, but that's really it. I don't really understand the HBO interpretation of Joel Miller in Season 2. At the outset of the show, Joel is a pretty stand-up guy. He's a good dad.
I'll bring back a cake. I promise.
He's charming.
It's, you know what? We gotta run, but Sarah will be by later. She'll stay as long as you want. Tell you all about Atkins.
And while he's struggling to completely hold his life together as a single parent,
Your t-shirt's inside out.
It really seemed like he was doing a good job of raising his daughter Sarah. And yes, I know Joel becomes a bitter shell of a man in his later life, but just as in the game, Joel recaptures his humanity by the end of the first season.
So time heals all wounds, I guess.
It wasn't time that did it.
So why is Joel such a bastard in season 2? Right from the get-go, Joel is suddenly an old narcissistic prick who is unable to take any real accountability for anything. Replacing the Joel confesses to Tommy scene from the Last of Us Part 2 game is now Joel tries to manipulate his therapist for validation.
Aren't you supposed to be validating me?
I've seen debate online as to whether or not a character like Joel Miller would realistically attend therapy sessions, and my take on it would be that if this is where the character is asking the writers to go, fine. After all, there's a lot of really great dramatic potential in HBO shows inserting characters who hold dark, murderous secrets into a therapist's office.
Security. I mean, I come here, I tell you things, I don't know how safe it is.
I understand your concerns, but I told you what the ground rules are. As long as I don't hear anything incriminating...
You don't get it. Just my being here incriminates me.
But what are we trying to accomplish with the Joel character here? Typically, we'd see a scene of a character in therapy to get a window into their soul, or just extract personal information from a character in an organic way to the audience.
At home, things are more or less the same. It's not any worse. I guess I should be grateful for that.
And The Last of Us Season 2 does this, but it's so phony, fabricated even.
That one treats me like a human being. She talks to me, says hello, gives me a smile, looks up to me, makes me feel like I'm a good guy, which I am.
Makes me feel like a good guy, which I am? Does Joel actually believe this? I'm not saying the Joel character has to hate himself. He's done a lot of good in his life, but does Joel actually believe he's a fundamentally good person? I mean, back in season 1, Joel and Tommy have a casual conversation about the fact that they both used to murder people.
Those things I did, Tommy, those things that you judge me for. I did those things to keep us alive.
We did those things. They weren't things. We murdered people.
Looks up to me, makes me feel like I'm a good guy, which I am.
We murdered people.
I know this is a little unfair. After all, Joel was a great father figure and protector to Ellie in the first season. He wanted to shield her from having to see death and dead bodies.
We'll cut across the woods here.
Isn't the road easier?
Yeah, it's just... there's stuff up there you shouldn't see.
He wanted to teach her to play the guitar.
They had a guitar in that RV.
Joel from the first season checks out as a nice, morally gray character who finds meaning in life again through his fatherly instinct over Ellie. Though he achieved it through a carefully constructed lie he's clearly not at peace with. But the season 2 interpretation of Joel can spin a lie like it's nothing. During Joel's therapy scene with Gale in the first episode, we find out that Joel killed Gale's husband. In the 6th episode, we get to see how the previously mentioned killing of Gale's husband happened, which was pretty cool because we got to see Joe Pantoliano reprise his role as Norby LeBlanc. But this time, Bella Ramsey is Baby Bink. After seeing that Gale's husband Eugene has been infected, Eugene pleads with Joel to bring him back to Jackson to say goodbye to his wife. Joel promises Ellie that they'll bring Eugene back and then kills him anyway. After bringing Eugene's body back to Jackson, Joel spins a lie off the top of his head, telling Gale that Eugene ended his own life, before Ellie interjects and reveals the truth to Gale, while also coming to terms with the fact Joel definitely lied about what happened in Salt Lake City. So why is Joel so adamant about lying to Gale after killing her husband? Does he think Ellie has so little agency she's not going to tell Gale the truth?
And, he wished he could say goodbye to you in person, but he didn't want to put you in danger. He wasn't scared.
Why does Joel think he can get away with lying to Gale in therapy when he's already been caught lying about the circumstances of her husband's death? Why doesn't Gale even bring this up when she calls out Joel's lying in therapy? At this point, realistically, why is Gale even treating Joel? She's not even a particularly honorable therapist. She breaks doctor-patient confidentiality with Ellie after Joel's death.
In my last moment with Joel, he said he wronged you.
The Season 2 Joel Miller is a fundamentally dishonest person, which, yeah, sure, you can play Joel this way, but then I have to ask an important question to this show's narrative. Why exactly am I meant to care when Joel dies when he's this unpleasant? Is it just because Pedro Pascal is our collective slutty daddy or whatever?
I am your cool slutty daddy.
Is it because Pedro ordered a big coffee 2 years ago and nobody will shut the fuck up about it?
Pedro Pascal likes his coffee supercharged.
Leave it to
the actor is going viral for a screenshot of his Starbucks
so
cup captured on video of Pedro just going viral with autograph for a fan.
If you want to take a different approach on how Joel covers up the Firefly Hospital lie, that's fine. It could even be really interesting. But this whole story becomes so needlessly convoluted, I just can't quite say this change is worthwhile. And this is pretty much Joel's entire arc in Season 2. It's attached at the hip of this sloppily written Gale story. If you ask me, I would say you should take the Gale character and change her into something called Tommy Miller. One of the best scenes in Season 1 was when Joel, despite his rocky relationship with his younger brother, he's still able to open up to him in a way he can't to anyone else.
I saw a man kill his own brother. To save her, while I just watched.
The other half of Joel's story this season is framed on a teaser that flashes back to his childhood that attempts to reframe the story of Season 2 as a tale of generational trauma. A really fascinating idea on the surface, but the whole starts showing up for me very quickly. We meet younger versions of Joel and Tommy, and we're told their father is physically abusive. Tommy is fearful of the punishment he's going to receive from his father after getting caught buying pot, so Joel takes the fall for his brother and tries to lie and say it was he who bought the drugs, not Tommy. We're introduced to a confused relationship with this father and son when Joel's dad shares a beer with his underage son, despite the fact he's about to punish his other underage son for buying pot. Joel's father then explains that while yes, he does hit his sons, he does not hit them as savagely as his father used to hit him. Joel's dad proclaims that he's at least doing a little better than his dad, and says to Joel,
I hope you do a little better than me.
Anyway, the overarching point of this teaser pays off at the end of the episode when Joel finally tells the truth about killing everyone at the Firefly Hospital. At the end, quoting his father to Ellie in hopes that someday she might be a better parent than he is.
I hope you do a little better than me.
So, just like with the therapy scene, I once again find myself questioning what we're trying to accomplish with the Joel character. From my understanding, Joel has never particularly struggled with being a dad. He's been a dad before. As I mentioned already, it seemed like Joel was a pretty good dad to Sarah, and frankly became a good father figure to Ellie. He's not struggling to figure out how to parent correctly in Season 1, he's struggling to allow himself to care about Ellie because he sees his dead daughter in her. So why all this sudden talk of being a failure of a father? In what way does Joel even perceive himself as a failure of a father? Is it the lying? Because I don't think Joel has much of a problem with lying. He certainly doesn't see himself as a failure for killing the Fireflies. It's a decision that he stands by.
But if somehow I had a second chance at that moment, I would do it all over again.
In Season 1, we saw that Joel does struggle with seeing himself as a failure.
It's all I've ever done. It's failure.
He saw himself as too weak, too deaf, and too old to ever be able to protect Ellie. There's nothing about Joel's upbringing addressed here, so I have to ask why Joel's dad has such an important presence in Season 2. This, like other changes, just strikes me as a half-measure way to make the story look different from the game, but we didn't achieve anything of a whole lot of substance here. It's tacked on and underdeveloped. It's like any new idea they have for the TV adaptation just flies no matter what. What if Joel was in therapy? What if we met Joel's dad? What if Joel told more lies? New additions to the story that bring us to the exact same conclusions, not allowed to change the shape of the story in any meaningful way. I do want to say I don't hate HBO's The Last of Us. I don't even hate Season 2. There was some good stuff here. I thought Isabella Merced was incredibly charming as Dina, and a wholly better written character than she was in the game. The same goes for young Mazzino's Jesse, who was given significantly more depth in the show as opposed to the game. And while I don't particularly love the writing for Ellie this season, I still think Bella Ramsey is great in the role, and they're still given a few moments to really shine. There are some really good performances here, and the production value is fantastic. I think it's really easy easy to take for granted the fact the show does so much on-location shooting. I mean, they could have just shot it in the volume after all. But running this show for another 2 seasons, we end on a cheap gunshot cut to black that likely won't be resolved until 2027. I guess all I'm saying is this ain't no The Ones Who Live.
What if I came here one day